Well, hello and thank you for joining me for another Alex on Tech and TechAdvice.life video interview. Today I'm joined by Aaron McNamara. He's the head of product AV at Samsung Electronics Australia, and we're going to talk about the latest developments in Samsung visual screens and display technology. Welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me, Alex.
Thank you for taking the time. Now, one of the new options that Samsung is offering this year is a choice between a glossy screen and a matte screen, something we've seen on PC monitors and laptops for some time, but not really with TVs. And this gives dramatically reduced glare and reflection. So can you please tell us more about why matte screens are better, what they cost, and how consumers can select Samsung TVs with this option?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've done a lot of research into the way that people, and Australians in particular, watch their TVs. And one of the studies that we've done has led us to believe that, over 80% of people, when they're watching TV, even in a dark room, are watching with some kind of light on in the room. And we know in Australia we have amazing amounts of sunlight, we have beautiful open plan homes. So generally we have a lot of ambient light coming in the room, and that's where reflections and glare can become a bit of a problem. So what we've done is we've taken that away and we've done a bit of research and development, and what we've come up with is this new anti-glare matte display screen. So that's featured on all of our lifestyle TVs. That is the Serif, the Frame, and these types of TVs. And what that allows you to do is actually capture the incoming glare and reflections that would normally, reflect straight back at the viewer on the screen, and actually disperse them across this new matte display. What that means is you really can't see any glare or reflections coming in. In fact, we've been able to get the certification to make us the first glare-free TV available to consumers.
So when you first launched the lifestyle TVs, they would have had some sort of anti-glare technology, but is this matte display that you now have on the latest lifestyle TVs, is this a different and improved version?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So when we launched our 2022 Frame TVs, they featured this brand new matte display. What matte display really means for us now is that it combines a micro embossing under the top layer of the screen. And what that does is really capture and refract the light away from the viewer. So imagine, if you were looking at a brick wall as opposed to a sheet of glass, it really does capture and not really reflect the light back at the person that's looking at it. So that has been a key improvement in our 2022 and 2023 range compared to other anti-glare displays that Samsung has had in the past.
Yeah, I've certainly seen when you're holding like the light from your phone up to a normal non-anti-glare screen, you can see these sort of star patterns and you can see the rainbow effects. But then when you hold it up to one of the matte displays from the Samsung range, you just don't see that because, well, that's what the matte display does. So
yeah, it really is amazing.
You can see all these in retail stores, right?
Exactly right. And, if you are in a retail store and you see one of our lifestyle screens, I'd absolutely encourage you to take the torch on your phone, hold it up to the screen, and you can see what a difference this technology really makes. And really a consideration if you are in a bright lit area and reflections are a problem with your current TV, I'd absolutely, challenge you to give it a try.
I always like to make a funny quip. So these matte displays, it's glaringly obvious that they're better screen technology, and it reflects very well on Samsung.
Very, very good. I don't know if I've got any of those such quips, but I might put those in my toolkit, Alex.
Sure, absolutely. Now, another area that Samsung works in is OLED displays, and I've seen that with regular, top-end OLED displays from competitors, when you see a white, bright like an explosion or something, you often see this green tinge, and Samsung's OLED displays don't have that green tinge on these white sort of explosions or these white bright areas. And in fact, I've seen a comparison side by side, and you actually see more detail on Samsung's OLED than you do on the traditional top-end OLEDs from competitors. So, why is this? How does Samsung remove the green tinge that other options on the market have?
Yeah, I think for those of you that have followed along with the TV technology and the constantly changing landscape that is display tech for a while, you'd know that Samsung hasn't had an entry in the OLED space for some time. We are fundamentally believers in our Neo-QLED 8K technology, and we do believe that's the best display available to consumers. But a large part of that was because we've spent a long time working on perfecting our OLED technology and making it really ready for that consumer use case. And the reason for that is the conventional OLED technology that you see in many other TVs today does use a white subpixel to really enhance the brightness and extend the lifespan. Instead of doing that, because we know that white is not a color producing pixel, it doesn't enhance the overall picture that you see on the display. Samsung spend a lot of time in refining their OLED technology to make it stable enough to not rely on the white to boost the brightness. In fact, we use quantum dot technology, the same as what you'd find in our Neo QLED range, to really enhance the color and brightness and only present red, green, and blue color producing pixels in our screen. What that means is that every single part of the screen is producing color and brightness. You're not sacrificing color quality just to enhance the brightness and try and overcome that glare that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, I've seen the difference, and it's very noticeable when you've got the two scenes side by side. You can see this green tinge on an OLED with white pixels, and you just don't see it on a Samsung. So, I mean, that's one of the benefits of continuously pushing ahead with advancing the state of the art in TV technology, and it's one of the reasons why Samsung is #1 TV manufacturer for 17 years in a row. So those results speak for themselves. So one of the other thing is I would like to know is, where are Samsung's TV labs located? I mean, I'm guessing that they are in Korea and probably other parts of the world. But what is something you can share of the work that's done each year to continuously innovate?
I think one of the real benefits that Samsung has from an overall kind of innovation perspective is they're in charge of their own supply chain, as it were. So, a lot of people don't know that Samsung is, a global giant in terms of mining, in terms of construction, in terms of things like shipbuilding. They're things that people don't genuinely or generally associate with the Samsung brand, but it's areas where we do, spend a lot of our time, and we have, quite significant investment and reach in those areas. But, little fun fact is that a lot of people don't know that Samsung Construction and Technology built or helped to build the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, the world's tallest building. So, all of those parts of innovation really come to play and come to life and integrate into our electronics business as well. An example of that is that we have a Samsung display arm, which is primarily their panel makers and display makers, which are completely separate to Samsung Electronics. We purchase our panels from Samsung Display, and then we refine the tech and the processes, all those other elements that go into making a great display before we bring it to market as part of Samsung Electronics. So when you talk about pushing tech forward and innovation, I think it's really helpful to understand that Samsung as a business, globally, has all these different sub-businesses that help to piece together to work in pushing that innovation forward. And, really the Korean heritage of our brand helps to have this real, engineering and innovative spirit at its core. And that really does permeate not only through to our products, but the way that we try to go to market every day. We really do strive to, do what you can and bring the best possible products and innovations that are really meaningful to Australians into, the lives of our customers.
Sure. And I'm guessing that, the display business is headquartered in Korea, but you still must have input from other parts of the world. Like, you must be giving Samsung Display input on things you'd like to see based on what Australians do with their television. So it's a global effort.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's input from all the different subsidiaries based around the world into what they need to see in terms of their range to make it make sense for their local market. I think one of the real benefits that we have at Samsung is we do have a lot of back and forth communication into what the lineup looks like. We've spoken before, Alex, about the way that Samsung Australia in specific in the Australian market has a real tendency towards larger screens. So we were feeding back when we first launched our OLED, for example, last year in a 55 and 65 inch side. that there would be a real passionate demand for a 77-inch size. And so, that was something that the team went away and worked hard on and was able to create the production facilities in Korea to be able to generate these 77-inch Samsung OLED panels.
So another thing that is, popular of late is TV calibration. But if you do it traditionally with a calibrator, it's expensive and there's also delays in getting the work done. So can you please tell us about Samsung's calibration system that's done with a PC and select smartphones?
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, I think most people that come in and buy a TV, they generally come into the market probably every 5, 6, 7 years, I would say. TVs obviously are designed to last longer than that, but that's the general kind of upgrade cycle that we see. But most people that are dipping in, they come in every 6 years and they understand that, a TV or a display in general, whether that be a TV or a monitor or otherwise, would always look better with calibration. But they don't really understand how that process works, what it means, where to reach out to have this process done. And to your point, once they start to go down that road, they quickly find out that calibration can be an expensive process. It can be time consuming. So what we've done in our 2022 and 2023 range is actually build a type of calibration software into our SmartThings ecosystem and into our TVs to allow users to get a calibration experience in the comfort of their own homes simply by using their smartphone. So what we've been able to do is build in the inbuilt software into the TV and simply download the SmartThings app. Now, whether you're using one of our Galaxy devices or, a competing smartphone device, you can download the SmartThings app. If you're on the same Wi-Fi network, you can simply launch the calibration once you've downloaded all the remote controls and all those kinds of things to allow you to control your TV remotely. You hold it up to the screen, it'll display a series of test patterns, and based on your room's ambient lighting and kind of the environment in which you're watching the TV, the calibration app is able to determine the best color quality out of that display right out of the box. We've got 2 different modes available. There's a very simple mode that probably takes around 1 minute to do, which balances things like white balance and gamma. And then there's a really detailed calibrator mode, which if you do, have that extra interest and you want to take your display to the absolute next level, as close to a professional calibration as you can get, there is a professional mode. It does take about 10 or 15 minutes to go through the whole process, but you can adjust every single aspect of your display's picture quality, and it stores it all in a helpful movie kind of calibrated mode in the TV settings. So you can switch in and out of calibration. If it's something you only want to use in a movie setting, for instance, you can do that and then switch back to something, one of the inbuilt, out of the box settings if you're watching the news or something like that.
And you would just put your phone onto a tripod with one of those phone holders and put it as close to the TV as possible if you wanted that longer 10 or 15 minute mode, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think your arms would get a bit sore if you had to stand there for 10 or 15 minutes. So we do recommend using a tripod or something in front of the screen. It does take a bit of time, but it's measuring every single part of what the display is capable of, whether that be brightness, luminance, the white balance, as I mentioned, the gamma offset, and tracks it all to the right kind of curves. So that you can get the absolute best out of your display. And I think, we've spoken again before around the way that the TV market in Australia in particular has become more and more premium, and Aussies love a great picture quality experience. So this is a way to really get the most out of that display without investing over and above money that you've already spent on the TV itself.
Yeah, and look, I would wager that most consumers have absolutely no idea this is possible. I mean, no other TV manufacturer talks about it. Probably they don't have that anywhere near the ease of use that you have to be able to do that. Is this something that you're demonstrating or talking about in store so that people know that they can do this with a Samsung TV or select Samsung TVs?
It is something that forms part of our toolkit, but I think it's one of those things. We're not calling it from the rooftops, as it were. It's one of those suite of features that we have available to really allow users to get an amazing customized experience out of their TV. We've got a lot of flexibility. We've got a whole suite of accessories to allow customers to get the most out of their experience. And when they're customizing, that could be things as simple as adding a bezel or a frame around our frame TV to make it look more art-like. It could be, we've got customizable stands where you can pop it up if you've got a soundbar in front of the TV so it doesn't cut off the bottom of the screen, which can happen with some soundbars, or even like this calibration app, which allows you to really customize the picture quality of the TV to your own environment and to your own use cases.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the modern era, personalization has never been more granular. You can go into such detail and depth these days. So it's fascinating to see that it's no exception with TVs. And now that you've done it, I'm sure some of your competitors will think, hey, we've got to do it too. But with the latest Samsung TVs, you can do it. So look, is there anything else that we need to know about Samsung's visual display innovations before I ask you some closing questions?
Look, I think one of the key things I'd like to talk about just for a moment is that, we're seeing a real trend towards larger and larger screens. And we do believe that bigger is better. You get an amazing experience, a real cinema-like experience when you go for a larger screen. And I think generally, our research suggests that nearly 1 in 2 customers that purchase a 65-inch or smaller TV kind of, once they get it home, they have those kind of buyer's remorse. They kind of wish that they went that one size bigger. Even if you're going from a 55 to a 65, or you automatically realize, I really could have gone that one size bigger. So to help enable that kind of technology, of course, and enable that trend, of course, we're really driving our picture quality improvements to make sure that whether you choose a Neo QLED TV, an OLED TV, or one of our lifestyle range, the picture quality isn't sacrificed when you go into those bigger screen sizes. One way that we're doing that is by enhancing things like resolution, and that's where that Neo QLED 8K technology really comes into its own. A lot of customers and general punters really don't understand that when you have a 4K TV and you go to that 75-inch side, you only need to sit 2.3 meters away to get the best picture quality experience. It's kind of 40 degrees of your field of view. So by doing that, if you've got a smaller lounge room, you can go for an even bigger screen if you really wanted to, by enhancing the resolution. And the bigger you go, the more important resolution is. So we do think that there's a real strong trend and a real future for 8K displays as we move into the next few years, and also future-proofs you from a content perspective as well.
Yeah, well, it's only natural that 8K content will become more widely available as time goes on. I'm sure future Olympics are already being, well, I don't know if previous Olympics were being filmed in that. In Japan they were always.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So the technology never stops. I wonder how soon it'll be before there's 16 or 32K or holographic TV or other things like that. But that's all in the future. At the moment, 8K is still futuristic enough for most people, and there are still people who've got their full HD TVs haven't upgraded because they're still in that 5 to 7 or even 10-year cycle. And
Exactly.
I mean, there's always a reason to buy a new TV because of the newest features. So look, you've just been talking about larger TVs, and you just recently launched your 2023 range. So what is the biggest TV that you're selling this year, and what so far has been the most popular?
So, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, we've got a screen for every kind of experience within our 2023 range. In fact, we've got 10 85-inch models, 14 75-inch models. We have a broad suite and huge array of big screen TV available to satisfy the needs of Australians. The biggest TV that we're selling in this year is a 98-inch TV, which is, quite a big screen. It's really something that if you've got a theatre room or something like that, you may consider. But outside of that, we also do create, ultra short throw projectors that can go up to 130 inches and give you a really cinematic experience, just like you're at the cinema, by bringing something that sits only 15 centimeters away from the wall and project a screen that large. So we do really have all kinds of screens for any type of experience.
Amazing. And it must take up a lot of space in your local JB Hi-Fi or Harvey Norman.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as screens continue to get larger, it does create all kinds of suites of challenges for us to overcome, whether that be a logistical standpoint or even from a retail footprint standpoint. So it certainly does keep us on our toes.
Yeah, well, that's called a good problem to have, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So one of the questions I always like to ask as we wrap up the interviews, can you please share a memory of your first computer?
I remember my first computer. It would have been, I can't remember the brand. It may have been a Dell even, but it did have a plug-in keyboard. I remember it still had the floppy disk tray. It would have been in around about 1997, I would say. I do still remember, I fondly remember that, that dial-up sound always brings back a certain level of nostalgia. I remember, I was kind of late in my school days at that time, but I do remember a fondness for PC gaming even back at that point. And some of the games that they had back then are still yet to be replicated in terms of the fun factor, at least for mine. I have very, very fond memories of that time and coming home in the afternoon, dumping the school bag down and jumping into some gaming in the afternoon.
I remember the same sorts of things. And was that PC using a CRT boxy monitor or a flat screen?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
No,
CRT.
absolutely. It definitely had the CRT.
And so what's the first flat screen TV that you remember owning?
I remember I owned a cheapie. I did have a cheapie. I don't remember the brand. It may have been, I don't remember the brand, but it would have been a 32-inch flat screen. I think at that stage it still had a DVD
Analog?
player in the side of it as well. It was definitely analog. But I think it was advanced in the fact that it did have a DVD player built into the TV itself. So we thought we were pretty fancy at that time.
Well, back then 32 inches was still pretty big.
It was pretty big, but it fit perfectly in my wooden TV cabinet that I don't have anymore, but I did have at that time, had for many years.
So my second last question is to ask if you could please share some of the best advice that you've received in life to help you get where you are today.
Best advice, I think, one of the things that I was taught quite early on was just around being genuine and working hard. I think that they're two elements that certainly I've applied. Coming into this industry in computer electronics, consumer electronics, you've obviously the technology moves very quickly and it's very challenging to keep your finger on the pulse at all times. And hats off to journalists like yourself, Alex, that are able to stay across all the latest breaking developments that are moving and changing at such a rapid pace. But staying on top and staying in front obviously requires a lot of dedication. So that's one element that I think is really important. But from my perspective, being genuine, all the things that we've spoken about today, we genuinely believe that we do have, the absolute best technologies available for Australians, and whether that be in our business dealings with other retailers and our valued partners from that perspective, or dealing with our colleagues internally, we always try and be very genuine, bring good solid feedback and constructive feedback to the table, and always try and be as honest as possible.
So what is your final message to the viewers and the readers of this article that this video will be embedded into?
Oh, look, I think for us in 2023, we've spoken about it already, but the Samsung really does have screens for every type of experience in our lineup. We've got our lifestyle screens, which you can display or hide that big black box on the wall when it's not in use by turning it into an artwork. We've got picture quality focused TVs like our Samsung OLED range. We've got our Neo QLED TVs, which give you an absolutely unrivaled viewing experience for color and brightness if you're in those really bright environments. Obviously, we've got 8K for the future. We've got big screens. We've got small screens available for gamers. We do try and bring a range to market that really does look out for every single Australian need. And so if you're in your local JB Hi-Fi or Harvey Norman store and you're in the market for a TV, instead of trying to immerse yourself in all the latest tech and all the jargon, because it can be very, very confusing, we know that, rather ask yourself, what am I going to use this screen for? Am I going to use it, in the bedroom, or am I going to use it in my theatre room? And those are the kinds of questions that the local salesperson should be able to help inform you on what is the right choice for your scenario, because, it can be a very confusing market to try and shop as a consumer.
Yeah, there's more choice out there than ever before. But again, Samsung's been number one for 17 years, so that's got to speak for itself. and you just pop down to your local retailer to have a look. And also, you can no doubt go to samsung.com.au to check it all out there as well.
Absolutely.
So, Aaron McNamara, the head of product AV at Samsung Electronics Australia, thank you so much for your time, and I do hope we can talk again in the future.
Absolutely, Alex. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.